What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
After sending Gadra to the Empire, it was time for a little interrogation. The first person on my list wasn't Shinji or his friends, but Ramirez. I just couldn't ignore some of the things that had come out of her mouth. She had pulled pranks on me before, so I was pretty sure that she was hiding something else.
What? I'm not hiding anything.
Ramirez started to act very suspicious and fidgety. It was clear that she was hiding something. From now on, I won't give you any more cake. With this threat fresh in her mind, Ramirez spilled the beans, and fast.
What do you want to know, Captain?
Captain? Well, whatever. There was no point thinking about it too much, so I began pressing her a bit.
Adalman had a much better showing than I expected. All well and good there. That said, what's the deal with the others? I didn't think Albert could drive back Shinji and his friends all by himself. I didn't think that there would be a death dragon here either. These oddities aren't happening on other floors though, right?
Albert wasn't just your average strong monster anymore. He had evolved from a Death Knight into a Death Paladin, ranked at Special A. He could take full advantage of his abilities. Before his evolution, he fought an even battle with Hakuro. Now, there's no telling how strong he is.
Hasn't Albert been teaching the guy named Arno? This time, he decided to go test his strength again in the lower floors.
Hold on.
I hastily stopped Ramirez's explanation. I found it weird that Albert was the one teaching Arno. After all, Arno was a captain of the Holy Knight Order. He had to be pretty strong, maybe even more so than Albert. And yet, it was Albert who was teaching Arno. That's why I just couldn't get what Ramirez was saying.
You see, after Arno and his men got scolded by Hinata last time, they went out and decided to try to challenge the dungeon again. This time, they managed to make it through the 70th floor because the Demon Colossus was still under development.
And then?
Those kids got their asses beaten again, of course.
It was a sight to behold.
Ramirez explained happily, as Veldora nodded with a chuckle. That must have been very interesting, by the sound of it.
Report. The battle log has been recorded.
For real? You're awesome, Raphael-san. I'll watch the recording later, but for now, let's focus on Ramirez's explanation.
So, how far did Arno and his men go?
They might have gotten to the dragon chambers from floors 96 to 99. The terrain effects active in those rooms were bound to bring any flesh and blood humans to their knees, for sure.
If I recall correctly, it was.
They were crushed the moment they encountered the next boss. It was funny to watch them cry and flee with their tails between their legs.
Hey now, that's quite the sadistic streak you've got going there. Hold on, the next boss?
Huh? Was the boss on the 80th floor really that strong?
What do you mean?
I mean, isn't Arno one of the 10 great saints that could even stand against an ex-demon lord like Clayman?
It suddenly clicked as the words were leaving my mouth. On second thought, Adalman or Albert probably could have beaten an unawakened Clayman. Moreover, with that weird death dragon thing, who's to say they couldn't have defeated even an awakened Clayman?
Well.
I was pretty sure we had Zijan as the 80th floor's guardian. Could this mean that he had metamorphosed inside his cocoon and emerged in his fully evolved, perfect form? I heard that Veldora had been training him, but that just didn't add up to me, either. After all, Zijan was an insect-like monster. I had no idea how he'd put the super dubious, Veldora-style killing arts to good use. I only allowed it because Veldora seemed to enjoy doing it, but I probably shouldn't have taken it so lightly. Way back, I had used my own cells to heal Zijan's wounds and repaired his exoskeleton with Magisteel. Maybe thanks to that, he could move at high speed and even summon his own subordinates. Since this was backed by Trainee-san, I wasn't going to complain. However, the idea of pitting you against a super-fast insectoid, an insect-type monster, right after a slow-moving colossus definitely rubbed me the wrong way.
Hey, so how is Zijan nowadays?
Just when I was about to further question the suspicious Ramirez, Veldora cut in.
My disciple, Zijan, has undergone a complete metamorphosis. He's become an invincible warrior and inherited my techniques. Better yet,
he continued,
Arno and his friends weren't even worthy of facing my disciple. The boss of the 79th floor already took care of them all.
It was starting to make sense. Arno and his friends were beaten by the 79th floor's boss, Apito the Queen Wasp. She was able to travel at ultra-high speeds and spew deadly poison. Despite the many years Arno and his fellow knights had honed their swordsmanship, they couldn't even touch her. Alas, all of them got stung by her insects and fled in tears. That's incredible. I felt like laughing.
You should have told me. You knew that I was busy working.
Hey, hear me out.
Ramirez squealed.
It wasn't just me. It was Mentor who started talking about training or something, then went on to teach an insect.
You idiot.
Veldora wailed.
Is this a betrayal?
Because it's not fair that you're acting like it was none of your business, mentor.
I suppose Veldora was in on it as well. I guess that people all wanted a part in something as fun as this. That said, I still felt like I'd been played. I couldn't believe that they were doing all of this behind my back. Actually, it was a mistake to have left things up to them. I'd have to think about that later, but for now, there was something else bugging me.
Hey, I've been wondering just now. What did you mean by training Zijan?
He is an insect, right? Could it be that Zijan's final evolution had granted him a humanoid form? I guessed correctly.
So you have finally realized. I have known from the start that you didn't realize this, so I kept my mouth shut until now to keep things interesting.
Hey, Veldora was being cheeky again. Though, this time, he bamboozled me hard. I began to look through the dungeon's recordings, and asked Raphael-san to show me an image of him. In the image, I could confirm Zijan's slender human form. That's it. It was just like that insectoid Xian beat in Rubirius, Rizul. Zijan looked just like that absurdly strong Rizul. He emanated the aura of a powerful individual. It was all thanks to the mutation in his evolution that he could attain that form. And it was this form that opened the door to a wealth of new combat techniques. Apito had undergone a similar transformation. Her body had morphed into a figure resembling a beautiful female. I should have noticed this sooner when Hinata was mentoring her. I thought that they were just doing some mock battles, but it turns out that she was actually learning things from Hinata. Apito picked up some great techniques and became very nimble in action. It appeared that she had also been sparring with Zijan to learn even more advanced moves. Arnaud and his men's bitter defeat was testament to this.
So, Arnaud and his friends re-evaluated their skills, but
they resigned themselves to beginner status and began to conquer the dungeon from floor 1. However, a single knight halted them in their tracks on the 60th floor. The Death Paladin Albert, the trusted confidant of the immortal King Adalman, who was the strongest of all the paladins hundreds of years ago, defeated them.
And since then, Albert has been beating them to a pulp every time.
After defeating Arnaud's team by himself, Albert had asked,
I heard they'd rebranded themselves as Holy Knights, but I didn't know their quality also changed, diminished, even.
That infuriated Arnaud, making him go all out. But even his strongest art, Ether Break, was useless against Albert. Albert wielded his sword with the same skill he had back when he was alive, and with his monster evolution added on top, Arnaud never stood a chance. His immortal body never tired and could even recover broken limbs. It really was borderline cheating, so unless you could leverage his weaknesses against him, he was unbeatable. On top of all that, Adalman had a wholly demonic reversal skill that made him way stronger than he already was. Of course Arnaud's team lost, I thought. Adalman's team absorbed the magicules in the labyrinth and evolved into high-class monsters. Arnaud's timing couldn't have been worse to challenge the dungeon. However, you could also look at it another way. He was lucky to have the opportunity to be taught by the strongest knight from hundreds of years ago. And now, Arnaud and everyone in the Holy Knight Order were training under the guidance of Albert on a rotating schedule. As it stood, the 60th floor became a dangerous area. But
so then, what about the other floors?
At this point, I could tell the general situation. Adalman and Zijan weren't the only ones who underwent a crazy abnormal evolution. I was spot on. In the dungeon, there was a group of strong monsters called the dungeon's Elite 10. If I were to assume, it was possible that they possessed combat skills on par with my executives. Needless to say, Adalman was one of them, as was his subordinate, Albert. Apito managed to get into the dungeon's Elite 10 because of her abnormal evolution, under the alias, Insect Queen. As for Zijan, it seemed like he had become the reigning figure of the Elite 10. Next up was Kumara. If she absorbed the power from her tail beasts, she could turn into her true form, which was her adult form.
Listen up, I'll fill you in.
Ramiris announced and gave me an update on the current forces inside the dungeon. Starting from the bottom, the 4 elemental dragons that Ramirez had carefully raised under Milam's instruction had successfully evolved into dragon lords. It was the result of their exposure to Veldora's eminence of massive amounts of magicules. The Fire Dragon Lord, Ice Dragon Lord, Wind Dragon Lord, and the Earth Dragon Lord. These were the 4 dragon lords. I could barely believe my eyes, but there they were, and that wasn't even the end. The guardian of the 90th floor, 9 heads, Kumara. The guardian of the 80th floor, Insect Kaiser, Zijan. The boss of the 79th floor, Insect Queen, Apito. The guardian of the 70th floor, Immortal King, Adalman. The vanguard of the 70th floor, Death Paladin, Albert. As a bonus, there were 2 guardians on the 50th floor, Gozer and Mezer. Frankly, the 2 of them didn't make the cut for the Elite 10. As for the last, 10th, member, it was Beretta, who was also the manager of said group.
Nevertheless, I want this trouble, this honor to be passed on to someone else.
Murmured Beretta, glancing at Trainee-san and Ifrit, I mean Cherries.
I have the important task of taking care of Ramirez-sama.
Trainee-san said, with a charming smile.
Me too.
Cherries added.
I am the only devoted servant of Veldora-sama, so I'm already busy taking care of him.
It looked like Veldora was taking full advantage of Cherries, but at least Cherries seemed to be satisfied. He already had his hands full, unwilling to take on another job. My heart sighed, these two really did take after that butler.
Seems like you're having a hard time, Beretta.
You understand, Ramirez-sama.
I nodded. While catching up with Beretta, I uncovered a number of things. First of all, who did the Elite 10 belong to? We ran the dungeon for our enjoyment and the profits. Without Ramirez, who built the labyrinth, or Veldora, whose magicules filled the labyrinth, it couldn't exist. So, now that raised the question who the Elite 10 should serve. Following the chain of command, that would be Ramirez.
Oh, yeah, I met with all of them and asked what they want to do.
Ramirez explained. Beretta would be with Ramirez, so no change there. Every Dragon Lord turned into Ramirez's subordinate. Apparently, she even made a contract to seal the deal. Dragon Lords had egos, so it was created with their consent. Moving on to the rest of the team. Kumara had become friends with the kids and was living happily here, so she was overly grateful. I caught wind of her saying that she would become my pet, disregarding the fact that I already had Ranga as one. Zijan and Apito admired me greatly, too, so they declared themselves my subordinates. Needless to say for Adalman, he definitely had a couple screws loose. It went so far that he even worshipped me as a god. Albert was under the influence of Adalman, meaning his loyalty fell back on me by proxy. Just like that, the 5 became my subordinates. Gozer and Mezer kinda worked in the labyrinth, so they may as well be Ramirez's subordinates, but I heard that they declined to join Ramirez and requested to serve me. Whatever. It's possible that they dismissed Ramirez based on her appearance, given their nature as a power-obsessed race.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. A big thanks to the AnimeKouhai patrons who made this video possible. Jared Bressler, Sanketh Chelu, Minotaur, Chadvota, I Like Anime, Ray Perez, Chris Guzman, Havox, Speed Saber, James Waters, Yon Junam, Arijit Das, Donald Williams, Moab A, Day of Light, Diasili, John M, John Charles, Godman Gaming, Akon Engok, Markithian Tidwell, Trevor Federkins, Andre L. Hamilton, Adrian, Sean Sinclair, Kumo, Tibush, Chang, John L, Fraser Guzman, James, Tojam, Edgar Fuentes, JV, Dirty Old Hobo, Thomas, Edmund, Jay, Christ, Joshua Cousins, Jose Hernandez, Vethelny, Lunel Scarlett, Khalid, Ryan, Mika Pekarinen, Christian Deshazer, Cal Robs, Professor DJ, Divine C. Harris, Randall Hernandez, KCH 1999, Rock Welch, Isaiah Alston, Bass Bulin, Panda Cats, Aaron Alarcon, DeAndre Nance, Oz Hunter, Monty Boy 98, D-Man, Divinay, Wise Viking, Otaku Hermit, Ruben, Louis Caro, Sama Kazuya, Yuki Iki, Peter Ambak Helsam, Zillion Diz, Pedro Robles, Ono Morman, Michael Rogers, Jordan, Kamal Ebanks, Chris Duncan Jr., Isaac, Shadow Wolf 660, Koala King 93, Devon, Tyree Ezel, Paul DeGrassi, Max Oriel, RN Bart. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.